And welcome back to the Texas Longhorn football channel. I am your host for this Overreaction Monday, your main man, Anwar Richardson. Jeff Ketchum is not here, but don't think we went to the bench and went really far down. It was like right there. Like when you got to go, there's like the next guy, the sixth man, got Ari Temkin, who is like my version of, did you ever watch In Living Color, Hey Man? When they talk about all the jobs that one person has. Ari is the host. He's the producer. He hosts on Big 12 radio. He does stuff for the Cowboys. Like, that's just off the top of my head. He's got 4 jobs, man, right? 5 jobs. How many jobs do you have, Ari? I have 1 job.
What's funny is I used to love In Living Color. I've never heard that in reference to me, but that's a great call.
It is. It's like, and then he cleans up the office afterwards. He makes the breakfast. He does everything. It's Ari Heyman filling in. And our sponsor, speaking of Heyman, is Rogue Apothecary. Listen, I wanted to show you guys, because I know we talk about Rogue Apothecary. They're a great sponsor. If you've got certain needs to relax, let me show you some of their stuff that they have. I went to my stash, Ari, okay? So they've got the gummies here. And can you see that? I think my stuff is here. They've got the gummies if you need some of those. They've got even higher potent kind of gummies if you need those kind of things, right? So they've got that type of stuff. If you got like little aches and pains, kind of want to rub a little topical stuff for yourself right there. If you like little moon rocks, I'm just showing you a lot of the stuff that Rogue offers. Your papers, if you need it, they've got the stuff, anything that you need.
Do you have anything else?
I mean, these are just the ones I just grabbed from the cabinet. The ones that I felt like I could show. So, yes. So listen, if you got any of your needs, make sure you hit up the Rogue Apothecary. They've got a great stuff. Richard always hooks up you guys with specials. So make sure you send them, tell them that we sent them. I love Rogue Apothecary. I love Richard. He's made me calm. People always ask, Anwar, how are you able to sit there and let Ketch do a State of the Union address and you never get a word in edgewise? Thank you, Rogue. It's the best endorsement ever. It's the best endorsement ever. All right. Let
me just say, by the way, my wife and 3-year-old both have positive COVID tests. So they're both positive, and I'm at the house with them. And so as soon as that happened, because I had my 3-year-old home with me for winter break for 17 days. He was back at school for 2 days. And now he's off for 10 days. Mm-hmm. So I went to therogueshop.com. I went ahead and bought a bunch of Delta 8 gummies.
Oh, yeah.
And then I used promo code Orange Bloods. And I got, as soon as I found out about those positive tests, it was Delta 8.
You're like, honey, wife, kid, you put you guys in there. Daddy's sitting here chilling. You know, daddy doesn't hear none of the coughing. Daddy doesn't hear the sneezing. Like,
nope.
You just got your Delta 8s and your Clorox wipes, and that's just Ari's house right now.
That's right. And the Book of Boba Fett. That's all I need.
That's fantastic. Well, I hope everyone starts feeling better. I feel like everyone has come down with COVID lately. I don't know. I can't think of very many people who haven't had it lately. Yep. So I hope your family is doing better. Are they doing better? I guess I shouldn't hope. Maybe I should ask. Are they doing better?
I mean, my 3-year-old has no symptoms at all. And my wife is, she's all right, but we'll be okay. The bigger thing for me is that I've got a Cowboys playoff game on Sunday now that, I've got to be at. So I really don't want to have COVID-19 and not be able to go to that game. So,
well, continue to quarantine, Ari. By your 5 days to be up, and you should be good to go for Sunday. So, Ari, speaking of events that are happening, I was thinking about, what we're going to talk about? It's Overreaction Monday, right? And I started thinking about the national championship game that's occurring on Monday night. We're recording this on Monday morning around 11 o'clock. So by the time you see this, you might be watching it during the game. You might be watching this on a Tuesday. And of course, I started running to my head, okay, what's the Texas tie here? And obviously, we can't talk about Texas being in a national title game, right? I mean, that's That is just, that's the big kids table. We are not at the big kids table for Thanksgiving. We're at the small kids table right now. Okay. But then I started thinking about, your expertise and let's go a little bit smaller. Okay. We're in January. And I started thinking about when do you think, Ari, Texas would be back in the Big 12 championship game, not national title game, okay? Not CFP, but let's go small. Let's just go getting out of 5-7, going to competing for championships. That's the thing that Steve Sarkisian was hired to do. Ari, we're sitting here in 2022. If you got to put $100 down somewhere on a bet, you've got $100. You've got to spend it. No gun to the head analogy. I never liked those. But if you had to give yourself a year where you said, okay, this would probably be the year that I would bet on Texas being in a Big 12 title game, what year would that be? Or do you not foresee it and you would move that bet towards SEC as opposed to Big 12?
Right. So my first thought is, well, are they going to win it next year? Because, I mean, how many more years are they going to be in the Big 12? The move of Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma, I think maybe ups the time frame here a little bit, because I mean, Oklahoma had a monopoly on the Big 12, and obviously losing this year, and then Oklahoma State and Baylor playing in the Big 12 championship game, and then Lincoln Riley fleeing and going to USC. I mean, the Big 12 is as open now as it's ever been. I mean, when Oklahoma won 6 consecutive titles, it just kind of felt like, man, it's going to be so difficult for anybody else to break through. And then we see what happens this year. And just kind of projecting out ahead. Like, I mean, it's weird to think that like Texas could be in position to win a Big 12 championship next year, as weird as that sounds. But I think that's
2022 seasons, what you mean.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it says more about the Big 12 than anything else, because obviously we know that Texas has a bunch of talent coming in here. How much will the talent immediately pay off? I'm expecting Quinn Ewers to have a decent season next year. So, man, I think that the Big 12 is so wide open that it's not a stretch to think that Texas could be in position to win a Big 12 title next year. I'll say this. If Caleb Williams does not come back to Oklahoma, which I don't anticipate he will, I think Texas is in position to win a Big 12 championship next year. Is that crazy?
I mean, yes, it's clearly crazy, right?
Yes.
Let's just say that. Yeah, when you're jumping from 5-7 to a Big 12 title, yes, that's crazy. Now, some people tell you Onward's not crazy. Look at what Baylor did, right? In the year. But the only thing the thing about Baylor to me, Ari, that's a little bit different is when Aranda takes over that program, it's during the height of COVID, right? So you're talking about a guy who doesn't really have spring football with his guys. He's doing everything from a first-year perspective through Zoom, right? And so when he finally gets a chance to get on the field.
And he's a long-time assistant too. So, I mean, that's a long-time assistant than becoming a head coach at that period of time.
Correct. So, I mean, there's so many different things that are working against him. What we saw this season, Ari, was what he can do with a real full off season to be able to work with his guys, strength and conditioning program, implementing the plays, all those kind of things. Like, that's what the difference is. So that's the only thing when I look at Baylor and when people want to make that comparison, I'm like, well, there is a lot more to it. It's like people, when they like to say, like, anytime a first-year coach struggles, they go, well, Nick Saban won 6 games at Alabama in year 1. It's like, well, let's not – are we ignoring the championship at LSU that he won before that, or are we just going to go to, like, the one, right? So,
Or like all the other coaches that won 6 games their first year and then weren't any good after that.
Correct. The majority of them, right? It's like every 6th-round pick. Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. Well, yes. But how many guys were 6th-round picks that never turned into anything? Like the majority, right? And so the question I have when you ask it, is it crazy? Are we just lying to ourselves about OU? That's the question, right? I mean, because I felt like we said the same thing when Bob Stoops steps down, Lincoln Riley steps in, Tom Herman, he comes in with all the accolades from Houston, and you're thinking to yourself like, oh man, this is here for the taking. And then next thing you know, Lincoln Riley ends up being one of the top 5 coaches in all college football. Now, that would be one hell of a streak / luck to be able to do that again. But you've got to talk me out of OU. Like, why should I not believe that this won't just be cut and paste once again for OU?
So it's a great question, because I think Brent Venables is going to be a successful coach there. I think he's done a really good job. I think his hires have been good. I think, not being the defensive play caller is a smart move for him. The reason, though, Anwar, is because their class isn't great. They lost a ton of players. They had a big time class coming in behind Lincoln, and they lost a ton of players. Some did stick. They did get a few of these guys to stick, but for the most part, they lost the majority of their class, especially the high end players. And then, the transfer portal, they've lost so much of their talent, especially at the skill positions, that it's Oklahoma. They're going to be fine over time, but is there this immediate rebuild that's going to need to happen as some of the talent, the high-end talent, has been flushed out of their roster? If Caleb Williams does return, that changes some things. But if he doesn't, you're looking at a situation at quarterback that's Dylan Gabriel, who's really talented, but this is a brand new offense. He does have some familiarity with Jeff Lebby at UCF and their time together there. So maybe there is some familiarity there. But it's either Nick Evers, who's a true freshman, who's clearly not going to be in position to start, or Dylan Gabriel, which I think there'll be a grace period there. So maybe we are sleeping on Oklahoma a little bit, but I would just say the thing is, in terms of high-end talent, Texas is a better class, obviously, coming in, and Texas probably has more talent left over, considering what Oklahoma's losing through the transfer portal too.
Okay, so Ari, this is kind of one of the things I wanted to get into, and this will be your area of expertise. Okay, I know it's early. It's January. What is it? What's today's date? The 9th that we're recorded. 10th. Today's 10th. The 10th. Okay, so January 10th. I will not hold you to what you tell me today. I can't tell you that the public won't, but January 10th, right. And it's very early. I would love for you to give me Ari's top 5 teams in the Big 12 going into the 2022 season. I'm kind of curious to see where everyone lies. And again, you do this day in, day out. We can listen to you on the Big 12 radio every morning. From what time to what time, Ari?
7 to 10 a.m. Central on channel 375.
There you go for the plug. So if you guys like listening to Ari here, make sure you check him out on SiriusXM. Give me the top 5 though, Ari, going into the 2022 season right now as we speak in January.
So the top 5 standings wise, refresh my memory here. So we've got Oklahoma State, Baylor, Oklahoma State, 1-2. Oklahoma was 3.
Look it up for you.
Iowa State was 4 or 5, something like that. And then who am I missing? Somebody else is towards the top here.
Kansas State, I'm assuming.
K-State. It's like let me see if I can find.
So it went Oklahoma State, Baylor, looked like Oklahoma, Iowa State, then K-State. Then after that, it went West Virginia, Texas, TCU, Texas Tech, and Kansas.
Okay. So top 5 into next season. Now, granted, there's still a lot of movement left before signing day and then the transfer portal. So there's still things that could happen.
Yeah.
But Baylor's bringing back a lot from this Big 12 championship team. I think they're going to end up losing Terrell Bernard and probably Apu Ika in the middle of their defense, probably Petrie. There's a good chance they're going to lose their top 3 defense players and then Abram Smith on offense. So they're going to lose a decent amount. Oklahoma State is going to lose a decent amount, but they still bring back a ton of their guys. So I'll put Oklahoma State at the top.
Okay.
I'll put Oklahoma right there. Number 2, Iowa State loses a ton. And Hunter Decker's at quarterback, so I'm kind of concerned about what they have at quarterback there. Kansas State will bring back a bunch of their players. They add Adrian Martinez out of Nebraska. I think that's a great addition for them. So I'll go Oklahoma State, number 1, Oklahoma, number 2, I'll say Baylor 3, K-State 4. And then I'm taking Iowa State out. I mean, I think very highly of Texas Tech, but in terms of top end talent and what's returning, what projecting out, I'll put Texas in that 5th spot.
Okay. So if you put Texas at 5, then you're projecting a probably a 7 to 8 win sort of season. That's kind of what it sounds like.
I'm going to put Texas at 4, K-State at 5.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll project like 8 win season.
Yeah, if you put them at 4, then you're probably putting it at
8, 9.
Okay, so then what then would need to fall in place from your perspective, from Texas to go from 4 into that top 2?
Quinn Ewers. It's about him being as good as we think he can be. I mean, you have a good quarterback that can make up for a lot of issues. Look, I think Texas, the approach that they have along their offensive line with young players, I think that, could potentially hit some trouble spots. But you're starting off in a really good spot in terms of offense from a quarterback perspective when you've got, a legitimate big play threat and Xavier Worthy, and then, of course, Bijan Robinson at running back. And then not even to make mention of what else they have at running back and, what they have coming up in terms of recruiting at running back and at the skill position. So, I think Texas is in a good position to hit the ground running at the quarterback position, but it's just a matter of Quinn Ewers being as good as we think he can be. Because if he's not, then we're going to see a lot more of the same of what we saw this year.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that. I feel like in the Big 12, and it's really like any conference, to be quite honest with you, but it seems like for the most part, whoever's the top quarterback in the Big 12 usually has the team in the championship game. And I know you say, well, golly, that sounds about obvious. Well, Patrick Mahomes was in the Big 12, right, and we never said that about Texas Tech, right? I mean,
it's never that simple for sure.
Correct. So, I know it sounds like that when we start looking at the Bakers and Kylers and Jalen Hurts and of the world, and of course, last season seemed to be a little bit of an outlier.
Right.
It is Quinn, but now that kind of goes to another question that I have for you, Ari,
okay.
And this might be a little bit tougher, but it really plays into it. Who are your top 3 quarterbacks right now? I mean, who are your top 3 quarterbacks in the Big 12?
Okay, so let's go through them. So we've got Quinn Ewers at Texas, Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma. I think Donovan Smith or Tyler Shuck at Texas Tech. Probably Donovan Smith. Looks like it's going to be Gary Bohannon at Baylor, but Blake Shaven may be the better quarterback. Spencer Sanders at Oklahoma State, Hunter Deckers at Iowa State.
This is Spencer Sanders' 18th year. Like, how much eligibility does this guy have? Is he like a medical red shirt, gray shirt, like billion shirts? Like, golly, he's still there? Goodness.
Well, what's crazy is because of the turnover at quarterback seemingly across the country and transfer portal, it's it does seem like even more so. 4-year starters are just unheard of at college now. It's crazy. So Jalen Daniels at Kansas, Adrian Martinez at Kansas State. Have I missed anybody?
TCU,
that's probably Chandler Morris. But I guess it could be Max Duggan too. He's still got eligibility as well. So I'll top 3. I'll go Spencer Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Quinn Ewers.
Okay.
I think. Yeah. Which says a lot about the current landscape of the quarterback position in the conference. Cause it's not, as you mentioned, it didn't blow you away.
No. None of those guys, none of the top 2 blow me away.
Right. And Sanders has had major, significant turnover issues throughout his career. And that continues to be a concern for him heading into his final season at Oklahoma State. But he's, I guess, the clubhouse leader here is the guy that has the experience and, just played for a Big 12 championship game and looked really good finally in his bowl game. Didn't turn the ball over at all in that one after having 4 turnovers in the Big 12 championship game. But yeah, it's not a great quarterback conference right now. It's pretty wild considering this is the quarterback conference.
Yeah, I literally can't think. Like, you gave me those names, and I'm like, it's a shoulder shrug. Now, that being said, that you still got to go and beat them, right? And so, like, that still has to happen. What am I thinking? Is the Oklahoma State game in 2022? Is that at Oklahoma State? If I'm correct, I feel like that's going to be on the road this year, because I don't remember going to Oklahoma State or what's that place? Eskimo Joe's or something like
Eskimo
that.
Joe's.
Yeah, I didn't go there this year, or 2021. So I that's kind of, and staying in OKC. So I did do that. So, I know that's clearly on the road this upcoming year. Be very interesting with the Quinn Ewers factor for you, Ari. That's what it boils down to, right? I mean, this. And what about you? I mean, is about Quinn.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so, because there clearly, like, Texas defense struggled at times last year. There were definitely some struggles, but there was also some times where they were in the game and they just didn't have any offense, and you could blame that on a variety of reasons. Whether you want to talk about the Casey Thompson thumb, or, whether you think that is legit or not legit. The Arkansas game clearly is a game that you look at and you say, in hindsight, maybe if Casey plays in that game, maybe it's a little bit more competitive than it was by the time that, Casey comes in. And by the way, he scores on each drive. It was just kind of out of hand, it's out of reach at that point. But yeah, for me, everything does become about Quinn, because he is, he's the present, he's the future. He's a guy, Ari, that some people project to be the number one overall pick. I think if someone at Rivals, I don't know if Catch told me it was Farrell or
I think
not.
It was Farrell that Catch.
I think it was who projects him to be a number one over. I mean, that's a saying a hell of a lot. I mean, number one, that's a franchise guy. That's a guy that teams would say, like, you're supposed to lead us to a Super Bowl at some point. Like, but that's how good he is. And so, but when I start thinking about it, there were throws, Ari, that could have been had, and the quarterback can't make every throw. But there were times that you saw Xavier Worthy just wide open. I mean, just wide open, which is hard to do, and just being overthrown, just missed. And you tell yourself, okay, if Quinn makes those throws and he's consistent and, and completes, a high percentage of his passes, maybe it makes a difference. Now, again, the defense has got to tighten up, but if he can hit, Xavier, if he can hit the other guys that are out there and then complement the running back, I think one of the things that Catch pointed out for a long time, Ari, and MC, if you would agree with this, it's great to have a good running back, right? But we saw a few years ago, Texas have Deontay Foreman, a guy who rushes for 2,000 yards, wins, it's named the best running back in the country, and they won 5 games.
Right.
And lost to Kansas, right? So you still got to have more than just a really good running back. As good as Bijan is, and we can talk about Heisman's and all these other type of things. If you're not hitting that quarterback, you're just not going to win.
Right. I mean, and it's interesting because Baylor is kind of an interesting study on that this year, because Baylor did not have a great and consistent passing game, but they were able to make throws when they needed to. And especially with Shapen down the stretch. I mean, Shapen was much better, I think, throwing the football. They just got a different look for Bohannon, and he's the experienced guy, and he really helped the running game with his ability to run too.